Alright, today I'm going to use one of my son's shirts. While he was at daycare, he ended up getting his button caught on something, and as you can see, it was ripped right off of his shirt. So we're going to fix it. We're going to use a 4-hole button for this, so that way it kind of matches the rest of the shirts. Typically when you get a button-down shirt like this, you will find at the bottom portion, right down in here at the bottom of the shirt, will be another button below this one, below the final one for the buttonhole, so that way you have a spare button to replace any that would fall or break off of your shirt. But since this shirt did not come with one, we're going to go ahead and use another button that I had laying around the house that happens to be pretty similar to these buttons and is the same size. So to repair the shirt and sew on the button, what you're going to need is your button, a seam ripper, but since we don't have one of those in the bottom of the shirt, I won't be needing this today. If you guys want a video on how to use the seam ripper, go ahead and comment below and let me know, and I'll do one on that. You will need a pair of scissors, your thread, any thread will do, a needle to use as a shank to make sure that you have enough space between your button and your shirt to be able to go through the buttonhole, the needle to sew the button on, and then it's up to you personal preference wise. I like them because they're a little bit easier, but a needle threader. So to start off, what you need is about 24 inches of thread. Put the scissors aside for now. And at this point you will take the needle that you're going to use to sew the button back on. Take your needle threader and slide it through the hole on the needle. After you have it through the hole, you'll go ahead and slide your thread through the threader and carefully pull it through. And it's that easy. At this point, you want to even up the end of your thread. Get both ends about even. If they're not exactly even, it's not a big deal. And then you want to wrap it around your finger, pinch it between your thumb and your pointer finger, roll it a little bit, and then pull it tight. If it doesn't work the first time, go ahead and try it again. Sometimes it doesn't work. But at this point, you will get a nice, tight, unbreakable knot. You're done with your thread at this point, so you can go ahead and set it to the side. Go ahead and pick up your needle. And you want to take, and if you're not like my son's shirt here and you don't have a nice little hole through it, as you can see, then you'll want to unbutton the button above or below, depending on where the button came off at. And you're going to want to try and line it up down the shirt or whatever you're sewing a button onto. And then make sure you line it up with your buttonhole. At this point, you can take your needle, slide it through your fabric, and go ahead and pull it the whole way. As you can see, the knot's not pulling through. and then you want to make an X where you're going to put your knot at, or where you're going to put your button at. Okay, so once you have the X, you want to go back to where you stuck that first thread through, pop it up through there, and carefully slide your button on. Now this is where your second needle comes into play. What you need the second needle for is to prevent you from sewing your shirt button on too tightly and it not being able to go through your buttonhole. So you just carefully place your button or your thread right across the button, just like this. And just like you did before, slide it through the button, making an X. Now, following the pattern that you did on this side, you want to put your needle back through one of the points on the X on the bottom that you made. Pull it nice and snug on the needle. And you don't have to worry about pulling it too snug, because that needle is giving you a little bit of slack for later. And then you want to go through your next hole on the button. And we're going to repeat this several times to make sure that our button is secured. And then we're going to take it up one more time. But this time, don't pull it through one of the holes on the button. We're going to take it up underneath of the button, as you can see. We're going to remove our needle, and we're going to take and wrap the thread around 7 times. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This will help raise the button up just enough that it'll fit through your buttonhole. Now after you've wrapped it around 7 times, go ahead and follow one of your thread paths back to the underside of the shirt. At this point, we're almost done securing our button to our shirt. All we have to do is create a couple little knots to make sure that we have it tied off nice and secure. So I just carefully pull it through some of the fabric that's underneath of the button, and you will have a loop here. So you'll take your needle after you've passed it through the fabric, creating that loop. Take your needle, carefully put it through the loop, just like this. 1, 2, slide it through, and pull tight. And then we're going to do that again. A little bit of the fabric. Creating that loop again. At this point we went 1, 2, and go ahead and pull it tight. And we're going to do this once more just to make sure that we have that button really secured to the shirt. Find your loop. take your needle, 1, 2, and pull through. Make sure that that knot is nice and tight. And then you can take your scissors and carefully trim your thread. Set both your needles to the side, and you have a nicely secured button back on your shirt. And there you go. That's how you sew a 4-hole button back onto a shirt. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Any suggestions on an easier way to do this, feel free to let me know those in the comments as well. If you'd like to see how to sew on a 2-hole button, go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and I will make sure to get a how to sew a 2-hole button onto a shirt here soon.